Have you ever felt like time was standing still? For one man, it wasn't a feeling, it was reality. Imagine a world locked in a single chaotic moment. A grand battle, stretching from the mountains to the sea, suddenly frozen solid. Arrows hang in the air like deadly hummingbirds. Flames from a dragon's breath are statues of orange glass. Ocean waves are carved into immobile cliffs of water. It's a world caught in a breath it can never release. And in this silent, frozen apocalypse, one man can still move. We call him the Swordsman. He is not a king nor a general, but a lone warrior who, for reasons unknown, was spared from the temporal freeze. His name is lost, but his journey is the stuff of legends. At first, he must have felt like a god. He could walk through a storm of arrows, step over the crest of a frozen wave, and peer into the terrified eyes of soldiers and beasts, all trapped in their final second. He could trace the lines of a spell half-cast, its magical energy a shimmering, solid ribbon in the air. He was the sole living soul in a world-sized museum of war. He walked for days which were only marked by his own weariness, for the sun never moved. He journeyed from the scorched battle plains to the petrified sea. He saw unimaginable sights. A leviathan mid-breach suspended over a fleet of ships. A cavalry charge frozen at full gallop, their hooves inches from the ground. A sorcerer whose final desperate incantation had crystallized around him like a diamond cage. He saw it all. The fury, the fear, the desperation. But as he walked, something began to change within him. The initial awe gave way to a profound loneliness. He was the king of a silent kingdom, the master of a moment that would never end. What good was his freedom when he was the only one free? What good was his life when it was surrounded by undeath? He encountered a young girl, no older than 10, frozen as she tried to shield her little brother. Her face was a mask of determination and terror. He saw a knight, his armor shattered, reaching a hand out to a fallen comrade. He saw two enemies, their swords crossed, their eyes locked not in hate, but in a shared final moment of exhaustion. He saw not just the violence, but the humanity trapped within it. The swordsman had fought his whole life. His sword was an extension of his will, a tool of survival and conflict. But in this silent world, his sword was useless. There were no enemies to fight, no threats to parry. His strength, his skill, his very identity as a warrior meant nothing. He walked for what felt like an eternity, the silence pressing in on him, the frozen screams echoing in his mind. He finally reached the highest peak of the frozen mountains, overlooking the entire tableau of stop time. He saw the whole terrible, beautiful, tragic picture. And he understood. This wasn't a world for a swordsman. It wasn't a world that needed another hero, another fight. It needed peace. It needed release. With a deep breath that was the only sound for 1,000 miles, he unbuckled his scabbard. He took his legendary blade, the one that had sung songs of victory and defeat, and laid it gently on the frozen ground. It was an act of surrender. Not to an enemy, but to the very idea of conflict itself. He was no longer the swordsman of the battle. He was just a man who wanted the world to breathe again. And as the hilt of his sword touched the icy ground, a single drop of water fell from a frozen cloud above. Then another. The ice on the mountain began to thaw. The silent world trembled. The hush of a gentle rain began to fall. Time, held captive for so long, didn't explode back into chaos. It melted. The arrows didn't fly. They clattered harmlessly to the ground. The dragon's fire didn't incinerate. It dissolved into harmless steam. The waves didn't crash. They settled back into the sea with a soft sigh. The soldiers didn't lunge. They lowered their weapons, looking around in dazed confusion. The memory of their rage washed away by the rain. The spell didn't detonate. It unraveled into shimmering dust. The little girl hugged her brother. The knight helped his friend to his feet. The two enemies looked at each other, then at their swords, and simply walked away. The war was over, not because a side had won, but because the world had been given a chance to forget why it was fighting. And the swordsman, he was gone. Some say he faded with the melting of time, his purpose served. Others say he simply walked down the mountain, a man without a sword, to live in the quiet world he had helped create. His legend isn't one of victory, but of wisdom. It reminds us that sometimes the greatest act of strength isn't to draw your sword, but to be the one brave enough to lay it down. Thank you so much for watching. If this story moved you, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more tales that explore the heart of mythology. We'll see you in the next one.